What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to some Dungeon Defenders 2. It's time again for another defense spotlight, and I wanted to talk about which, in my opinion, I think is probably the most used defense in the entire game, as it's available from new players right as you start, being on one of the OG heroes, and it's just widely versatile. Going through the different chaos tiers, this defense is only countered in 2 of the 7 chaos tiers, and it actually only has 1 chaos enemy that is a direct counter. Of course, I am talking about the Flame Aura. Now, when you think about builds for any map, really, there's a few different things you want to think about, particularly with Onslaught in mind and pushing forward. And that is this: as far as the basics of building out a lane, you're going to want 2 basic different types of defenses. You're going to want lane clearing defenses, and then you're going to want boss or heavy mob killing defenses. Now, obviously, this is just base level mechanics and something we want to think about, and the Flame Aura can just be a huge tool as far as being your lane clear defense. Of course, goblins are just going to evaporate in them. They're very easy to set up where it can outrange its counter, and very easy to work around as well. As with all defenses in the game, one of the best additions you can add to any defense is stacking anti-mods. Of course, we know anti-mods stack in a multiplicative nature, meaning the more anti-mods you get on there, if it's a mob that meets each one of those anti-mod mechanics, it's going to multiply the damage on top of each other. So I choose to go with anti-melee, anti-chaos, and defense rate servo. Now, why defense rate servo, you ask, instead of going with just another anti-mod like, say, anti-orc? Well, that's because if you use a 10 of 10 defense rate mod, and you've got it at chaos 8 level, that eliminates the need for a defense rate shard. As with all defenses, getting to the speed caps in the game is very, very important, and the Flame Aura is going to cap out at a 0.31 attack rate. Now, this is going to take 75% increased attack speed to get to that stage. Now, there's various ways to achieve this. Of course, the basics are in our Ascension. You can get 35 of that 75% right from your Ascension. That leaves another 40% for you to come up with, and you can do this by either using a 10 of 10 defense rate mod at Chaos 8. You can get it by using a gilded defense rate shard, or you can get there by using the combination of an ungilded defense rate shard and any quality defense rate mod. Will all get you to the cap. It is important that you get as close to the speed cap as possible. Of course, the more times your defense is attacking, the better off you are. Now, let's take a look at those anti-mods. When picking anti-mods, the first thing you want to think about is what mobs are pushing through your defenses. Obviously, you don't want to throw on an anti-goblin if the Flame Aura is just evaporating goblins. There's just no need for you to do that extra damage to goblins. Now, anti-melee is a great general use anti-mod because it does hit and does affect so many of the mobs out there. Now, when we take a look at what else you would want to add in that addition, I chose anti-chaos personally. Anti-chaos is going to mean I'm going to do even more damage to the vanguard mobs, assassins, the cyborgs as they come through. Of course, the cyborgs are the direct counter to the Flame Aura, so I want to make sure I'm hitting those cyborgs with some increased damage. This made me choose anti-chaos as the go-to anti-mod for my Flame Auras. Now, with this mod setup with anti-melee, anti-chaos, and defense rate, the setup basically has one counter in the entire game, and that is Frost Orcs. So with only Frost Orcs to worry about, what I personally do is I generally will not use Flame Auras against Frost Orc lanes. Of course, I have my Lavamancer set up to handle these Frost Orcs by going anti-frost, anti-orc, as well as defense range to outrange those Frost Orcs. So I personally will rarely use flame auras on a Frost Orc lane. However, remember Frost Orcs are melee mobs, so they are going to take increased damage from that. As long as you have some nice range on your flame auras, you can easily outrange Frost Orcs. I personally am choosing just to go with the flame auras as my general lane clear, and I'm not going to use it heavily on any of those Frost Orc lanes. Now with that defense rate mod in place, that does free up the shard slot, and that allows me to stack destruction. So mass destruction and destruction, of course, just is huge, hits like an absolute truck. If you don't have mass destruction yet, you can easily go ahead and swap that out for vampiric empowerment instead. Vampiric empowerment will stack nicely with destruction. However, for the full wombo combo, get that mass destruction and the destruction together and let these two stack on top of each other. Now I chose to go with a little bit more range instead of going with more power as my third mod. As you see, 1.79 million DPS at fully upgraded in Chaos 8. So it's doing more than a sufficient amount of damage. So the next step for me is how can I get more damage done? I'm not looking for more damage per hit or more damage per second. I'm looking for more damage done. So I want this Flame Aura to have the potential to put down much more damage out there. So by doing that and increasing the range, of course, the Flame Aura is going to hit the mobs sooner, and it's going to hit the mobs more times. So I personally am going with Deadly Strikes in the mix. Now, as I mentioned, the Flame Aura only has 2 of the 7 tiers are a counter to Flame Auras, which means Flame Auras are a huge tool for progression. Now, as you're progressing up through the tiers, of course, you can't use the shards you don't have. So there's lots of other shards that will squeeze in quite nicely. You can get Encroaching Flames in Chaos 2, which if you don't have this combo of shards, Encroaching Flames is going to be a very nice addition. Of course, Vampiric Empowerment, as I already mentioned. And then if you don't have a 10 out of 10 defense rate mod, you can always use a Gilded Defense Rate Shard. If you don't have a Gilded Defense Rate Shard, then you're going to want to use a Defense Rate Shard and a Defense Rate mod to get to those speed caps. When taking a look at the Ascension, you would follow the basic builder rules of Ascension. So in the utility category, always go Defense Crit Chance first, then go Defense Crit Damage, then move on down to your Flame Aura Range Gambit. In the defense category, we already talked about the importance of defense speed, so directly into defense speed and get that free 35% attack rate, as it's almost half of what you need overall, so definitely do not go without these points. Now, as you see, I also build Lightning Strike auras on this particular monk, so I went into defense speed first, then the Flame Aura damage. Now, of course, I've got it capped out, so I'm working on the Lightning Strikes as well. The Flame Aura can be just a huge tool, and there's a lot of different ways to set up versus the counter. If, say, you're just starting to push an Onslaught, and you don't have anything upgraded to Chaos 8, say you found your first Chaos 8 amp, and you've got that Tenacity mod, well, we all know that a 10 out of 10 Tenacity will completely negate any Cyborg effects at Chaos 8, so why not throw that 1 amp you've got, or 1 amp that you can easily get through either the Material Converter or through the lower Onslaught floors, into a Reflect Beam, as a Chaos 8 Reflect Beam is going to reflect any Cyborg attacks. So if a Cyborg comes out of the lane, it can sit here and wail on this all day long, and it's never going to affect this Flame Aura. Of course, going with the additional range allows you to eliminate some of that anyway. The Flame Auras can be very, very powerful, and you can make them even stronger if you're willing to give up that range. However, that is just a lot to sacrifice in my opinion, and I really don't suggest anyone going full damage when what you really want is to win the maps. You're going to have an easy time winning the maps with a little bit extra range in the mix. So if you have any questions or comments about your Flame Auras, by all means let me know down in the comments below. and I'll do my best to get any questions answered. However, that will do it for this time around. That is a look at the Flame Aura. Now remember, Flame Auras are no different than any other defense. There's a lot of different ways to build them and a lot of ways to set them up. As long as you're winning maps, there is no wrong answer. So take this build and customize the Flame Auras to make them your own and get to those victory chests. So thank you so much again for watching. Click that like button and please subscribe. I will be back soon with more Dungeon Defenders 2. You can count on it. Thanks again, and I will see you next time. Take it easy.